Welcome to the Rocket Roof Show, where we equip fellow roofers to do more commercial business every first and third Thursday of the month. It's time to launch your business to the next level.
We're live now? Okay, cool. Had some technical difficulties here because we had to set everything up in a different format than we usually do, and so I got my computer here so that I can see comments. That doesn't always work good when I'm watching my phone and seeing the comments at the same time, so bear with me while I get everything situated here. I'm going to wait for a few minutes to see some people come online, so if you want to invite some people, go ahead and share this live video right now and get some people on here. We're going to be talking about a multitude of different things. And like I mentioned before, this special edition is Ask Me Anything. And so I really do mean Ask Me Anything. Now, a little bit of a disclaimer. If the question is a little unsavory, I'll probably just, avoid it and say I don't know, or we won't touch that one. But so keep your questions on the up and up. But really, whether it's commercial, whether it's coatings, whether it's even residential. I did residential for a long time. With owning a business, taking risks, whatever question you think you might want to ask, I'd be more than happy to try to answer it. And I will also say I don't have all the answers. So if there's a question you ask, I'm not afraid to say I do not know. So yeah, ask away. If you want to go ahead and share this video, either on a group or on your private page, I'd be more than happy to have more people on here, and then that would be great. So with that being said, I'm just getting my computer set up so that I can see what's going on here, watch your guys' questions. I got Reb on the other side of the camera here, watching and helping me answer these questions. So want to thank him for my help tonight. He's staying a little bit late. So what's going on? Oh, see, that's why you're my video guy, because I forget about stuff like that. So yeah, welcome to the show tonight. Been wanting to do this for a while, and doing this can be a little bit nerve-wracking because I could be a little nervous about what you guys are going to ask, but I feel pretty comfortable that I can field most questions, and also I'm not afraid to say I don't know. I'm just a little boy, a little guy from West Michigan, Shelby, Michigan, small town, so kind of a little bubble here, and there's a lot of the world that I haven't seen yet. So, but I am happy to say, I'm after 25 years in the roofing industry. I'd like to think I know a little bit about roofing, and but I'm always wanting to learn the next thing, right? Learn a little bit about how to make a little bit more money with less time, less effort. Aren't we all wanting to do that? So, so as I wait for comments to come in, I don't know, maybe I won't even see any questions come in for me, but I'll see them in the comments. But I will just bounce off on some different topics in between questions. So the question I'm going to start out with, or the topic I'm going to start out with tonight is scaling. And so I know this is probably going to rub some people the wrong way, or going to have people there's probably going to be a lot of people that disagree with me, but everybody wants to scale nowadays. And scale seems to be this new buzzword, right, that everybody's using. Want to scale. And what's that even mean, right? What does scale mean? Does that mean grow your employees from 5 employees to 30 employees? Does that mean grow your revenue from 3 million to 10 million? Does that mean increase your trucks or your fleet from 2 trucks to 10 trucks? Does that mean increase how many branches you have, how many states you work in, how far you travel, how many sales reps you have? I mean, what does scale mean? And I think for a lot of guys that are small, maybe you were like me. About 6 years ago, 7 or maybe 5 years ago, I was kind of at the height of what I would say of scaling, and I had 13 guys in the field, a residential crew and a commercial crew, and I don't know, 4 or 5 people in the office, and I was just running everywhere like crazy, right? And so I thought that's the way contracting was supposed to be. And I never felt like I had a real grasp on the delegation part. Like you hire people and you try to teach them what they need to know, and usually those things are what you've been doing. I had been doing for 15 years. It's like, okay, I've been doing this for 15 years. It should be easy to teach Joe or John that comes in to do this thing that I've been doing. But if you were like me, I was a poor teacher. I thought I was a good teacher, but I guess they say that, communication only works if the other person is understanding what you're saying, right? I thought I was training, I thought I was communicating well, but they were not producing the certain results that were desirable. Either for me they were desirable, or for them to see that what they were doing was fruitful or producing the right things. And so I kept feeling like I was failing. And now this isn't to say that other people can't do this. So when people ask me now, like, well, why did you give up scaling, or why did you end up deciding to get smaller instead of bigger? And I think it has all to do with your fortitude, your gut to be able to take on the ability to scale and to delegate to people to build an organization. And not everybody has that ability. Now I know some people argue and say, well, if you got a coach, you could you could develop that ability, and you could learn to delegate and train people and to lead people. You could, but I'm 46, and I kind of learned that for me, all my kids are out of the house, and so I want to spend more time with my wife, and I really didn't want to spend the time that I have right now trying to find that spot, find my lane, and to build this big organization. That's my prerogative, right? So you might have a different prerogative. That is perfectly fine. If you want to grow and you can scale and you have the ability and the talent and the skill set to do that, or if you want to take the time to develop that skill set, that is awesome. For me, I decided that wasn't for me. I had tried to scale. I had tried to do that and to delegate, and it just wasn't working. And so there's a question that I asked in 2019 of myself, and that was, where do I make the most money with the least amount of energy and the least amount of time? Where do I make the most profit with the least amount of headache? And it wasn't just like a one-day question and I answered it. It was over the course of the whole summer and fall, and it just kept coming back to, well, it's when I'm on a commercial job. When I'm on a commercial job, usually it doesn't really matter how big the job was, but it was, I was excited. I was super excited to go bid the job, talk to the customer, doing the job. Even though it was big, usually they were bigger, the problems seemed to be easier to get around and get over. And then I would go do a residential job, and it was like, yeah, I'm making a little extra money, but the excitement wasn't there. And it always seemed to be a little bit of drama, and the customer was unhappy with, a scratched gutter or a broken bush or a little stain on the driveway or something. And it just was always frustrating, like, hey, we did this job and everything's beautiful, and you're complaining about this little broken branch on the bush. And I just don't have that in commercial. And so I found that less energy, less headache, and when I'm doing commercial for a way bigger payout. And I just kept noticing that feeling that I had, and that I wanted to be excited to go to work on Monday every morning. And that's what when I was doing commercial, that's what it was. I want to check my questions here. Michael Smith says, you never wanted commercial roofing. Glad you changed your mind, but what made you change your mind? So let me go back to before I was in commercial. I started my business in 1998. I'd already been doing residential for 4 years. I know, not a lot of experience. Also, before I started my business, I was never a foreman. I was never a supervisor. I was never in any kind of leadership role. So for those of you out there that think, oh, you got to be a supervisor, you got to be a foreman, or you've got to have some kind of leadership experience, I'm not going to tell you that you have to or you don't have to, but for me, I didn't have any. The only leadership experience that I had before that was the last year that I worked on the farm with my dad. He put me out in the apple orchard. I was in charge of the crews picking apples. And so there was about 5 different groups of people that were picking apples, and it was my job to move the boxes with the forklift and take tags and keep count of everybody's tags and boxes and everything and move them from orchard to orchard. That was the extent of my leadership and my supervisory skills. And then when I went into construction and roofing, I was never over anybody. But then I started moonlighting. I started doing jobs at night and on the weekends. And of course I'd have to get help from here and there. And that's when I realized I had some leadership abilities. I didn't really think about it like that. I never really thought in those early days, I never really thought, well, I'm a leader, I'm a boss. I was just like, hey, I'm doing this job and I don't like working alone. I don't know if you guys are like that, but I always seem to get on the roof and I'm like, dang it, I forgot my utility knife. Dang it. I forgot the flashing. Dang it, I always forgot something. So just like I always had to have somebody working with me so that I could have that extra person to run and get stuff for me. I'm sure there's probably a topic to talk about right there even, but and I just don't like to work alone, so I always needed that extra person, and I quickly learned how to be a boss. Fast forward a few years, I got good at residential. I got good with dealing with people. I got good at writing estimates and trying to get higher end work and weeding out the lower end work that I didn't really want to spend time on. But I would drive by these big commercial jobs, and I'd be lying to you if I said that I was jealous or that I was looking at it like, oh, someday I'll do that. I didn't think about that. I'd see the flags waving up there on a commercial building, and it was almost like it was another trade to me. It was like almost like it was just a totally different trade or skill. And then eventually I was kind of like, well, that's the big leagues. That's where the big guys play. That's where the big leagues, the veterans play, and that's out of my league. That's not in my lane. That's not where I belong. And so I thought that for a long time. Oh, you have to have a special skill set. Oh, you have to have been in business for 40 years. Your dad had to have already had a commercial company so that you could learn all this stuff. All these little myths that I was telling myself. And I'm sure maybe you think yourself the same thing. But I stumbled into commercial by doing roof coatings. Many of you probably already know that. I helped another guy that was a previous employee of mine. He wanted to start his own company and he wanted to do something different. So he decided to do roof coatings. I sold the job, subbed them to him. But it wasn't really like I was doing them because I was running my own residential gig and doing my own things, and I was just helping him do his coating jobs. And then after a few years, he decided he didn't want to do it anymore. I bought all his equipment, and I kind of like I said, I fell into commercial roofing. And that's kind of how I accidentally got into commercial roofing. Next question for Wally Brown is, how do you invest in, mentor your crews, and retain them? So I'm probably not the best at this because it seems like a lot of the guys that I had, I trained them and worked with them, and they ended up leaving for a bigger company. Because there's a quote by Richard Branson, I think, that says, treat employees so well that pay employees well enough that they'll stay with you, but train them good enough that they can go elsewhere if they want to. And so, I had some of the best metal guys and shingle guys around. I mean, their attention to detail was really, really good. Most of the time, I'd say 99% of the time, they would do things exactly how I would have done them if I was on the job site. And I really, really enjoyed working with a lot of the guys. But then after they got trained so well, they would go work for companies that did government jobs. And here's the cool thing. I'm still on a good relationship rapport basis with a lot of those guys. There's a company that is a big commercial company in my area. And I think about 3 or 4 of the guys that used to work for me work there now. And, when you let an employee go or they quit from you, sometimes there's like a little bit of like, are they upset with me? Do they think I'm upset with them? Where's that relationship? But I always try to make sure that, a couple times a year I call them and I'll just be like, hey, how's it going? I passed you on the highway, or what kind of projects you working on? And I hope things are going well for you. And I try to show them that I'm happy for them taking a step up, because the other company, maybe they could get benefits they didn't get with me, or this particular company, they were paying, I don't know, like $8 an hour more than what I could pay, because they're working on government projects and doing some really big stuff. And so not everybody's going to be a great fit for what I'm doing. And so I applaud those guys, and I make sure that they understand that, hey, there's no animosity with me. And if you're going to go somewhere and use the talents that you acquired here to go somewhere else and make more money, good on you. Good on you. That's awesome, and I'm happy for you. And so I make sure these guys know that, because several of these guys, they still live within a mile from my house. But yeah, they're traveling all around the state doing some really, really nice high priority jobs, high level jobs. So that's awesome. So how do I invest and mentor in them? For a long time, I constantly try to invest in them personally. And so one of the things that I do is that I kind of tell people to do with their crews is don't give them the answer. So when I worked on the crews with them, when I used to wear a tool belt on the job all the time, or I'd come and inspect the job, and they're like, hey boss, we're working around the skylight, or we're working on this chimney, and what would you do in this situation? And I always live by the theory, don't give them the answer. And you're like, what? Don't give them the answer? Why wouldn't you give them the answer? Because I want them to think for themselves. I want them to be individual, independent problem solvers, okay? And so when they say, hey boss, trying to go around the skylight and it's unusual, how do I do this? I come back with them and say, well, how would you do it? So now usually you get an employee to look at you like, well, what do you mean? I just asked you a question, and why are you asking me? Because most of these guys, they already know the fundamentals of roofing. So like the fundamentals are water typically runs downhill, and we deal with water shedding material. You got certain temperatures you're dealing with. You've got certain fasteners that you're dealing with. You know all these basics and fundamentals. There's a lot of times I'm doing a detail, and it's a detail I've never done before. Maybe it's a triangle chimney, or it's a star-shaped skylight, or something weird. And you can't just go ask somebody else every time, how do you do this? Sometimes you just have to figure it out. And so you go back to what you're taught, and like the fundamentals. You wrap it with a certain material, and you wrap it a certain way, and then you do it at this temperature, and you use what you've learned to do that new thing. And so I'd return that question back to those guys and say, what would you do in this situation? And I let them tell me. Well, usually they think about it and they say, well, I would do this and that. And I'd say, well, why would you do that? Because, this runs that way and the water's going to go in here. And I say, well, what happens if the water goes across here and the water goes, then they'll be like, yeah, that'll leak. And I say, well, okay, so if that's going to leak that way, then how would you do it differently? That's really how you get an employee to start being problem solving and thinking for themselves. And I don't do it just so that my bottom line can be more profitable, so that my crew can be more profitable. I do it to help them develop personally as a person, as a craftsman. And so that, moving forward, they can be a problem solver, not just on that, but you'll build confidence in them that, what, if I'm doing this next detail and I'm going to go ask Andy how to do it, he's probably going to ask me how I would do it. And so maybe I ought to spend a few more minutes thinking about it myself. And so you will actually start getting people that are problem solvers. I was just talking to a guy that used to work for me. He has his own company now, and he's got two different guys working for him. And one guy is not a problem solver. You put him on this particular task, and you're on another project, and he call you 30 times. Hey, what do I do here? What do I do? I got this problem. What do I do here? I don't know what to do here. I don't know what to do here. But then the other guy is like, I'll figure it out. And I'm going to use these basic fundamentals that I know to do the job. And here's a funny thing for you. The guy that was a problem solver that's figured it out is 20 some years younger than the other guy. And the other guy has way more work experience. And so you'd think that, the older guy would be problem solver. No, not always. Not always. And so learn to be a problem solver yourself, but also learn to have your employees be problem solvers by letting them solve the problem. And actively asking them. Because if somebody knows why you're doing something, this is why I'm flashing the chimney this way. This is why I run my cover tape this way, or this is why I use a screw in this particular situation. If the employee knows the why of what you're doing, it'll be much easier for them to understand the process and how to do it next time. Instead of saying, well, yeah, we use a retro driller on this particular application. Okay. If they don't know why, then the next time you run into that, they won't know that you use a retro driller or not use a retro driller on that particular situation. So I know that's kind of a long answer to your question, but don't always give them the answer. Okay. So I'm glad to have you on, Wally. I know you're strong on training, and I like seeing your facility there and the knowledge that you have, which kind of leads me to another thing is like, there's a lot of guys that have 15, 20, 25, 30 years experience that they are still, and I'm not downing anybody here, okay? So don't take it that way, but they're still grinding away, swinging that hammer, welding welding material every day, just doing the hard labor, and don't realize that they actually have a gift. They have 20, 25 years experience up in their head here, and they can use that to lead the newer guys coming in. We're all complaining about the labor shortage, right? We're all complaining about, there's just not enough skilled labor. There's just not enough employees to go around. Nobody wants to come into the roofing trade. But I'd say if we start actively using our head knowledge so that the younger guys that are coming in can gain from our knowledge, if there's something that we've done for many years, why not save that other guy a few years of headaches and train them and teach them? I know some of us, like worried, like, well, we don't want to train some guy and have him steal our job. We got to get over that mindset, man. We got to get over that mindset, because I'm not saying, you don't value your job, but you do have to understand you have a lot of value up here in your head. I'm gonna use my dad for example. My dad was a fruit farmer for many years, and we did apples, cherries, some peaches, and we had some asparagus. And there are quite a few farmers that come over to my dad's farm regularly and would ask him, hey, Ken, what are you doing with your cherries this year? What are you doing with your apples this year? What product are you spraying on? What time are you doing it? Are you doing it at full bloom? Or are you doing it at pre-bloom? Like it seems like, as I was a kid, it was this, I didn't really think anything of it at 10, 12, 14 years old, but it seems like every week there was another guy in there asking my dad questions on how to do certain things. Well, when I graduated from school at 18, and I was the last kid, and I was the last boy, and I didn't want to take over the farm, and so my dad had an opportunity to sell the farm. My dad sold the farm, and he retired at 54 years old. That's pretty young. But when my dad sold out the farm at 54 years old, he took retirement to a whole new level. I mean, he don't golf, he don't travel, he don't really do vacation. I mean, he goes to the coffee shop twice a day and plays around the stock market and mows his grass and, fiddles around the garden. And so my dad is 78 now, so he doesn't do quite as much of that anymore. But it always bothered me that he retired at 54 years old and he had all this knowledge in his head. 30 years of, maybe close to 40 years of knowledge in his head on how to spray, how to harvest cherries, how to do all these different things with apples and peaches and asparagus. And nobody, once he retired, boom, all that knowledge just done, not shared. And of course, my dad isn't on social media at all or anything like that. In fact, I don't even know if he knows how to get on the internet. But and I'm not saying this is bad. I'm not saying that, I'm not down on my dad because, maybe he didn't want to share anything like that. But I always think, like, couldn't a bunch of young guys gained from the knowledge that he had that, was locked in his brain on how to, instead of just figuring it out for themselves, And so if you're that guy, if you're in the roofing industry and you have all that knowledge and you have the 20 years you might want to consider, taking some young buck under your wing. You don't have to do every guy that comes into the company, but, pick a guy that you like, or that he wants to learn, and, tell the kid, hey, I see you're ambitious. I see you're hardworking. I see you want to make a good career out of this trade. If you're willing to learn and to apply it, I'm willing to teach you. And I think that's a good deal you can make with a young guy. Because obviously I tell you what, when I was 19 and 20 and I was working with another crew, I was pretty cocky. I was arrogant. I would have my foreman tell me, hey, you're supposed to nail this trim this way and you're supposed to do, and I would always come back with I know. I'd say I know all the time. Instead of saying okay or I'll do that. I didn't mean anything bad by it, but I just would constantly say I know. My foreman one day, he got so pissed off and he fed up with me saying I know. He says, dang it, you don't know. So stop saying you don't know, because you're obviously doing it wrong all the time. So don't say you know, because you don't know. And I'd like to say I learned that lesson that day, but I didn't. It took me a couple years to get out of that and to stop saying I know, and actually be more humble about it and learn and understand I had a lot to learn. I got some questions coming up here. Rev, you're not letting me know when the questions come in.
We'd like to take just a quick break to thank our sponsor, Top Roof Marketing, a full-service marketing group that specializes in the commercial roofing industry. If you're looking to boost the commercial side of your business, they have lots of ideas to connect you with building owners who are looking for help. Visit toproofmarketing.com.
JP asked me, how do you grow without tying up all your cash flow? Example, I have a chance to bid a job for $400K TPO job, but it's 30 net on material and 60 in labor. So I guess my first answer to that question would be know where your limits are for how much risk you want to take on. Now, I'm not saying that you can't do a $1 million job or a $500,000 job when you're in your first or second year of business and knock it out of the park. You might be able to do that. But it's a huge risk doing that, because that could sink your boat if you don't treat it right. And so I would say grow appropriately and take your risks appropriately, and only you know where that spot of how much risk you can take is. It's not just in the roofing world, right? It's also in the real estate world. You can, take on big risks and buy a multi-million-dollar property, not even know if you're going to be able to sell it for less or more. But you got to be able to know your market. Obviously, if you're real estate, you're going to be like, okay, I know this particular area of town or this development is going to gain in value, and I got a good feel for the economy, that kind of thing. You're not just going to be like, gamble it. It's the same thing with roofing. You've got to know how, like you're saying, it's a TPO job here. How familiar are you with TPO? Do you already have a good crew lined up that you're comfortable that it's going to do a great job? Or are you just going to wing it? And if you land the job, are you just going to go on Facebook the next day and say, hey, I need a TPO crew, and then just try to wing it? Because that's those hasty decisions on the fly are what's going to put your company at high risk. I would like to say I've taken some jobs that are a little bit bigger than, obviously if you grow as a company, you're going to take jobs that are a little bit bigger than you did last year. Or, maybe this year I'm going to do the biggest job that I've done of a certain type, maybe square footage or dollar amount or furthest away from my, there's always new, there are always first jobs that are bigger or a new type that you've done. But you've got to be able to take into consideration, what exposure of risk am I taking on in my company? If I do a job in Florida, am I going to be able to service that and warranty that job 5 years from now, 4 years from now when they have a problem? Or is it too big that it's going to come back and bite me? So you got to take those things into consideration. What can you lose and what can you gain? Don't just look at what I can gain part. Next question that JP had was, Wally, Wally had a question. Passing this knowledge along just makes the industry better as a whole. Pay it forward. That's true. That's very true, Wally. You know, there's a lot of times I actually train guys that are in our company to my own detriment. What do I mean by that? Because there was a lot of times that I would be training a guy, teaching a guy, and I knew that if I taught him this particular thing, he could use that knowledge and go work for somebody else bigger, or use that knowledge and go start his own company. And that's a hard pill to swallow when you know you're going to teach a guy something and he's going to go start his own company. And I know there's a lot of guys that are against it because you're like, oh man, you're creating your own competition. I'll give you an example. I have a guy named Luis that about 11 years ago, he walked onto my job site, residential job site. He literally had like a broken down Isuzu with a fork, a pitchfork, and a shovel in his truck. Barely knew English, and he was looking for a job. And I was busy. I wasn't really hiring. I was up on the roof tearing off like a 3-layer shingles and cedar shake tear off. I mean, it was a nasty tear off. And one of the guys said, hey, this guy wants to talk to you. And I'm like, I don't really have time right now. He's like, well, he's looking for a job. He really wants to talk to you. I said, well, send him up here. So he climbed up the ladder. He talked to me. I can't even remember if maybe he used a translator or what, but I remember his English wasn't that good. And I remember telling him, well, you know, you got a shovel in your truck or in your car and your pitchfork. And I remember him saying he was working on a farm and he didn't want to work on the farm anymore. He wanted to do something else. And he was not going to sit at home and play video games. So he didn't matter how much money he was going to make. He was going to go out and work and earn some money. And I thought, well, a guy like that doesn't want to sit around the house, is going to go out and do something. I could use him somewhere. So I told him, I said, I don't know how long I can use you, but I got a lot of shingles to clean off the ground here. I can keep you busy for a couple days, but I can't promise you anything. He said, okay. So he worked for us for a couple days. And then a couple days later, I said, okay, I could use you for a couple more days. And then a couple more days. I kept only doing like a 2 or 3 day basis. And then finally, about 2 weeks later, I'm like, you know, this guy has got a lot of ambition. He was showing up to the shop. At the time, I didn't really have a shop. I had like a little 24 by 24 garage. And he was showing up 30 minutes early and sweeping the floor. I had a wood stove in the shop. He would show up 30 minutes early on his own time, split the wood, load my wood stove, clean up. And I'm like, man, this guy's, he goes above and beyond. He does more than what's expected. And you obviously you're going to believe me when I say that he went up the ladder pretty quick because he was willing to put more effort in, and in return I would invest more into it. But as years went on, he became a foreman, and then as he became a foreman, he started asking me, like about bidding jobs and doing things like this, and I would share with him these different things, and he started doing side jobs. And one day he came in and talked to me, and he says, hey Andy, I want to start my own company, and I'm going to leave. Now, I was a little bit something that day. I was a little bit mad because I had invested so much into him, and he decided to leave. And he didn't give me a lot of notice. I think it was like 1 week. And if you're anything like me, maybe you're not like me, but I had like 3 or 4 jobs that I'd already bid and had on schedule where I knew I needed him and his expertise on this job. We did quite a bit of standing seam at the time, and there was a lot of standing seam details, trims, and the way that we fold things and the way we hem things and stuff that were designed in our company the way that we did it, that nobody else did it that way, and he knew them. And so when he was going to leave, it was kind of like, man, he's the one that knows all these details. But you just got to be able to adapt and embrace it when people leave. And so when he left, it wasn't like the most smooth transition. But after I think it was like 3 weeks, I called him or something, and he came into the office, and I told him, I apologized. And he apologized. We wanted to make amends, and so we just, I said, I just want to see you do well, Luis. And I don't know, maybe he's even listening to this. I don't know, but I did want to see him do well. And so what he did is I started helping him build his company. And so to this day, I still help him with hiring guys, how to train his guys, how to navigate taxes, how to navigate marketing, how to navigate dealing with licensing and all this stuff that takes with running a business, because he's not natural at business like a lot of people are when they're starting their business. I wasn't natural when I started either, and so now I sub a lot of jobs to him. So it helps me to help him, because helping each other is beneficial to both of us. And I'll tell you, we have a great relationship nowadays. He'd give the shirt off his back for me, and I do the same thing for him. But you can't always look at every separation like it's going to be like, well, he left me, screw him. He's off on his own. You can't be like that. And I'd have to say that I've fired quite a few guys in my company. I've let quite a few guys go in my company. I've had quite a few guys quit me in my company. But there's very, very, very few guys that I don't talk to them anymore. They don't talk to me anymore. I always try to keep that bridge open to say, hey, maybe I'm not your cup of tea, but we can still get along. We can still be friends, and and keep that open. So Wally Brown says, got to ask the age-old question, Andy. Where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years from now? Well, that is an interesting question. And so where do I see myself in 5 to 10 years? You guys are going to hold me to this. So I've had a goal for quite a while, probably 10 years. It wasn't really written down until a few years ago, but I told you my dad retired when he was 54. And I've always had in the back of my mind that I wanted to not retire when I'm 54, but I want to step aside from my business when I'm 54. And so that is 8 years away. I'm 46. And there's not a hard date to it. It might be 54, 55, but about 8 years from now. And a lot of guys that are in the roofing industry, I never hear people talk about their exit strategy. Do you even have an exit strategy? Have you thought about an exit strategy? I know there's a lot of guys that are like, well, I'm going to roof till I die, or I'm going to roof till I can't walk anymore. Well, good for you. I don't want to. I love roofing. I like roofing, but I don't love it that much. There are other things in this life that I want to do. I want to travel a lot. I want to try to visit every continent. Maybe not Antarctica, but I want to visit a lot of places. I want to travel a lot. I want to see a lot of what the world has to offer. And I also have found that I love coaching and training people. I love helping other guys succeed and getting to the next level, and maybe avoiding some mistakes that I made along the way. And so this last year, I made the decision the opportunity was right that my son-in-law, he used to be a tower climber. He decided he would come and work with us, and we worked out a deal where he's going to be part owner in 5 years. And so I know there's a lot of guys that are against partnerships. I was against partnerships for a long time. In fact, I think about 4 or 5 times I've tried to bring somebody in as a partner, and for whatever reason, there was red flags. Maybe it was with me, it was with them. Something didn't gel right, and it fizzled out before anything became concrete. And I always had in the back of my head, my dad always told me, partnerships aren't good because nobody else is ever going to think exactly like you do. And nobody is going to agree with all your grand ideas, which I get. That's good and bad. Somebody's not going to think like you do. Maybe that's good for me because I'm not the greatest at managing finances. I'm not the greatest at organization. You can see my table right here is pretty clean. That's because I pushed it all off the table and put it somewhere else. So for this video, usually it's a disaster. I'm just going to be real with you guys. I'm a contractor. I'm not. I go to other people's businesses and I'm like, they're all nice and tidy. Everything's organized, and I'm like, I don't know how you do it. I know it's a discipline. I get it, but I'm a stacker. I got to have things in visible view, and I go into my daughter's my office manager. I go into her office. Everything is organized. I could ask her for anything, 20 seconds, she knows where it's at, and she can get it for you. Me, it's like, I wish I could be that organized. But going back to like partnership, I realized that I want to groom somebody to take this company over someday. It's not the biggest company in the world. It's not the biggest company in the area, but it's definitely a moneymaker that can be, somebody can come in, like my son-in-law, Brandon, somebody can come in and instead of starting at ground zero, like I did 23 years ago, I started ground zero. Like I made $20,000, I think, my first year. And then I had to work my way up. So instead of somebody starting at that ground zero, for him, if I can just spend a couple years grooming him, actually it's going to be a 5-year period. It's a 5-year buy-in period that he's going through. And then I will stay on for a few years after that I'll still own the company, but he's going to have an ownership in it. And then I can still consult and work with him on it and, make sure that everything's staying good through the transition. But that's my goal. That's my target for the next 5 to 10 years. Now 10 years is a little bit further than that. So what I'm looking at that point in time is I'm passionate about missions. I guess I might as well say it. I'm a follower of Jesus Christ, and so I feel we're called to do missions. I know some people say, well, we have people that are, in the United States here that need to be ministered to. I get that. But certain people feel called to certain things, and about 12 years ago, I ended up going on a trip to Port-au-Prince, Haiti, to visit a orphanage there, and I had an experience that it's hard to define, but felt like I was called to do that. And so ever since then, I've gone there 3 times now, and I've gone to Guatemala once. Ever since then, I've kind of felt like eventually I want to have some kind of mission or agency or some kind of program to work with people there. And I'm only running this roofing business so that I can create some kind of income and create a lifestyle that I can do that with. And so, I don't want to be a multimillionaire. I want to be financially independent, financially secure, and I'm well on my way to do that with also have a money-making business. But I also want to live life. I also want to live life to the fullest and be able to, have time freedom. And it wasn't until a few years ago that I really actually thought about what's time freedom about. Time freedom is to be able to do what you want, when you want. And I'm not saying we can't go to work. We do have to do things to produce income, which is work. But there's a way that you can make your work that's enjoyable by finding the things that you have, your certain skill sets and your talents, and doing them in a way that you don't have to work 80 or 90 hours a week. If you like working your face off, more power to you. Nothing against that, but that wasn't for me. I worked my face off for several years. It almost cost me my marriage. And so I had to reevaluate. I had to step back and say, maybe I can get done in smarter ways. Maybe I can get done in 40 hours what used to take me 80 hours. Maybe I can leverage my abilities and my skills to do something different and make less or make more money in less time. And so just have to be creative about that and educate yourself and start thinking bigger. And so I'm going to challenge you to do that. Start exploring. The easiest way to do that, I know it's kind of a vague way I've just said that, but the easiest way to do that is look at somebody you aspire to. Look at somebody you look up to, and say, they're the kind of person that I would like to be. And then find out what they're doing. Are they reading a lot? Are they partying a lot? What kind of people do they hang around with? What kind of attitude do they have every day? What kind of attitude do they have when they go through difficult situations? How humble are they when they have big wins? How do they talk about other people? And once you see that person you look up to, and I just went through this with a book study a couple days ago. I was reading one of John Maxwell's books, and he said, take a person that you look up to and ask yourself these questions. And I was really seeing this person that I look up to, how they conduct themselves, and realizing, that's not really how I conduct myself. So maybe I need to make a few changes. And Because sometimes I think, well, that's good for that person. They're special. They're way more disciplined than I am, or they're whatever. And it's something that we can teach ourselves. And so if you look up to that person, emulate that person, it's very simple. Do what they're doing, copy them, and you'll probably have similar results. John Paul, JP has a question. One more. Have you ever wanted to open up more offices? Yes. Back in 2014, 2015, I had a office manager named Rob, who was my nephew, and he was young, but he was very, very super smart guy. He had a master's at Penn State, and I think he even went and got his doctorate in business administration and what's it called? Governmental affairs or something like that. But his dream job was to be a city manager somewhere, and he came to work for me for a while, and he's actually what got a lot of our processes up and running into place, a lot of reforms created. He streamlined a lot of the stuff that we still use today. He's the one that got that started. I told you a minute ago, I don't have a lot of structure and organization myself, and so he put a lot of that into place. But when he was here with us, things were going so well. It's like, hey, things are going so well. Why don't we open up another branch to the north of us? And so about an hour north of us, we found a place. We found a nice building. It was like, 10,000 square feet or 8,000 square feet, nice warehouse. And had a good price on it. We got approval from the bank. We went to the bank. We had a PowerPoint presentation with 3 of our team members there. We got approved for the loan. Everything was ready to go forward on that location. And then we had to put a manager there to, obviously watch that location, because I couldn't do both locations. And in the pursuit of looking for that next manager to open up that branch, I got a gut feeling. Now I know some people think, well, you get a gut feeling. That's trepidation. That's fear. You got to push through it, right? I think that's a lot what Americans think is like, oh, you've got this problem and you're scared and you got to push through it. I'm probably going to rub some people the wrong way, and you're going to disagree with me, but see, I pray about a lot of these decisions. And sometimes when something doesn't feel right, or something like maybe there's a red flag, or there's just like, you know what I mean by like doors open or doors are closed, opportunities. And I think a lot of times in America, we tell each other, well, if there's a closed door, you just knock it down, or you just keep beating that door until you knock it down. And I believe if you keep breaking down, you keep busting against that door and it's not opening up, maybe God has that door closed for a reason. I believe that he had that door closed for a reason on this particular thing that we were trying to get through for that office up north. And I feel like if I keep beating that door, it'll eventually go down, because God's going to say, well, if you want it that bad, I'll go ahead and let you have it. But I don't think it's the best thing for you. Well, through prayer and through, waiting, we decided that wasn't going to be the way I wanted to go. I didn't really want to manage a second location, and so we decided to opt out of having a second location. I'm not saying that's the right or wrong thing for you, but once again, that goes back to my idea of scaling. Do you have the gumption? Do you have the fortitude in you to scale? If you do, more power to you. Maybe you can be the next Tech to America. You can be the next, Cinemark. But for me, I had to realize that wasn't me. I did not have the fortitude to do that. Also, you got to look at where you're at in life. Right now I'm empty nester with my wife. We've been married almost 30 years. I'm at a point in time where I want to spend life and do life with her, and I want to travel more with her. I want to do things with her. I'm not in the point in life where I really want to aggressively build another company. Now, if you're younger, if you're 30, you're 25, and you feel that you want to do that, then by all means follow that. But you've got to align that with what your lifestyle is, and also what if you have a partner. If you're single, that might be different, but if you have a partner, you got to align that. I see too many guys, and I'm not pointing any fingers at any individual person here, but I see too many guys. They will build their business. They will pursue their business. They will crush it, crush it, crush it. They'll pour the hours in and the energy in and the devotion in, and they'll pour the money into their business while their marriage suffers and suffers and suffers. And the spouse will take it for a while, and the communication, breaks down, and then the guy's like, or the business owner's like, well, she just doesn't get me, and she doesn't understand my targets, and then some of those guys they're trying to build this empire, they're trying to build this kingdom, right? And they lose their princess on the way to building the kingdom. What good is it to build your empire, to build your castle, and your princess doesn't make it with you to live there? And I know many guys, they're just like, well, that's just the way it goes. Business is hard, business is tough, and it's just one of the, that's one of the wounds on the battlefield. Well, I don't agree with that. I truly believe it's God, spouse, kids, business. Business takes the back seat, okay? Got to put God first, and you got to put your spouse next. And you can't have business up there. I know for the longest time I was like, well, I got to take care of my business because that's what takes care of my family and my spouse. I've got to take care of my business. That's a lie. That's, in my opinion, you've got to take care of the important things first, the priority first. And so that's why in 2004, my marriage was, we were going over the cliff. We were a locomotive on fire going over the cliff, going towards divorce. And I decided to sell the business, get rid of all my tools. I took a job in Texas, moved from Michigan down to Texas, and did that move to save my marriage. And then, 4 or 5 years later, I ended up, or it might have been 3 years later, the opportunity came up to start my own business again. But that gave us some time to realign our values and what was important to us, and what I needed, what she needed from me and what I needed from her, and how we were going to run our business going forward. And so that is a kind of a long answer of why we didn't open up more offices. But I see guys open up more offices. They do really well at it because they're really good at hiring good managers to manage those spaces. They're good at communication. They're good at delegating. I was just talking to a guy this morning. He was asking me some advice on residential, and he did say that he's really good at delegating, which that's super cool. A young guy like him, if he has that skill, sometimes it's natural to people to be able to delegate and to allow somebody else to take that task and run with it, and not be afraid that they're going to mess it up or not do it as well or as fast as you did it. We all have those different skill sets. Some of us they come naturally. Some of us have to acquire those, and some of us, we try to acquire them and we just never get that great at them. So you just have to find out where that is. 1 hour away is too close. Yeah, I understand that. We're in a very sparse area up here in Michigan, so our whole county is like 15,000 people. My town is like 2,000 people. So an hour north is actually, I look at some of the other companies we have in the area, their locations are about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes apart. But I've never opened up another location, so I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of clueless how far away or how close locations should be. But I did find out that's not something I wanted to do. I did not have the grit. I did not have the fortitude to be able to do that. Call me a nanny, call me a loser, whatever you want. But you do have to find out, as an old friend of mine used to say, he said, that's not a mountain I choose to die on. And that's, having a second location is one that's not a mountain I want to die on. So, but I will have to say, we're coming up on 1 hour here, guys. And I'm going to say this, I am pretty surprised the questions that we had, because when I have one of these special editions where it's ask me anything, I never know what kind of questions I'm going to get asked. So sometimes I'm like, oh, they're going to ask me what color underwear am I wearing, or some kind of weird question. But these are good questions, guys. I really appreciate you being on tonight, and I'm really glad Michael Smith. I don't know if Michael Smith is still on here. I want to say a quick shout out to Michael Smith because he's kind of a what do I call it? Backseat coach, I should say, because Mike Smith is a truck driver now, but he was a roofer for, I know I'm going to get this wrong, Mike, 25 years. He grew up in a company. His dad was a roofer, and he ended up getting out of it about 10 years ago, 8 years ago, and went into truck driving. But this guy worked on so many roofs in my area, and within an hour of my office here. And you wouldn't believe how many roofs I post a picture of or I call and ask him about, and he knows the history of that roof. You know, it could be a grocery store, it could be a warehouse, it could be an ice cream facility, it could be, you know, a tool and die shop, it could be a school. And I call him up and say, hey, Mike, I'm looking at this job. Do you know the history on that job? He'd be like, oh, yeah, that's a Carlisle job, and it's a da-da-da-da-da. And we were on that. We did that job in like 94. And it's got this, and it's got... The guy is like, he's forgotten more about commercial roofing than I'll ever know. And so, and he's also been able to kind of keep my passion lit, my fire lit for commercial, because early on, when we had done a couple, you know, we did a couple little jobs, and I'd call him up and ask him, you know, how do I do this, and what should I be looking for, and he'd give me some advice. And he was always very encouraging because he would, I don't know if he was just blowing smoke up my butt or whatever, but he'd be like, dude, you're going to go far. You're going to do well. You've got a good setup. You've got a good crew. You know what you're doing. You're a smart guy. Like he would be like a cheerleader for me. And I don't know if he knows this, but you know, I've told him that he's helped me out a lot. And so I just wanted to say that because I know a lot of people don't know who he is because he doesn't really do roofing anymore. But this guy has helped me out of a lot of binds, jobs that I'm bidding, and he'll be able to tell me, yeah, that job was done in '96, and you know, he'll give me some history on it. Or sometimes it'll be that job was done by another company in this year. You know, it might not even have been him that did the job, but he gives me history on these jobs, and I can go back to the building owner and I can be like, you know, hey, I know that this roof was done about this time and it's got this system on it. In fact, I even know in some of the jobs, I even know the previous installer, and I can consult with him. You know how much credibility that gives me on a job when I go into a job and I can say, you know, I know one of the previous installers that's actually worked on that job and be able to have some information there. That's won me jobs. That's won me several jobs to be able to say that. And so I want to say appreciation and a thank you to Mike. I think it's been going on about 12, 13 years that I've known him, and I ask him questions all the time. And it's just good to talk to him because he's got so much knowledge on a lot of these systems, and particularly older systems that I might not know about. And so I appreciate you, Mike, and thank you. And he's also been the administrator for the Commercial Roofers United group. If you are not in the Commercial Roofers United group, here's a little shameless plug. That is a commercial roofing group that we started about 3 or 4 years ago. Only commercial roofing, very professional. We try to keep marketing and advertisements to a minimum. We also try to keep any of the bashing and you know, really crude comments to a minimum. And we found a lot of guys have gotten a ton of help out of that page. And if you haven't joined that group, I'd encourage you to join. We're not accepting new members right now, but we will be in September again. It gets kind of overwhelming running a page like that when you know you run a full-time. Yeah, I have a full-time job too, and running that page sometimes gets a little bit tiresome. So we just stopped accepting members for a little while. But starting September, we'll be allowing new members. But Mike is one of the administrators one of the moderators on that page, so I want to thank him for that. Him and Warren Pavon helped me with that, and I couldn't do it on my own, so I appreciate that. But yeah, we're coming up on an hour here, so if you have any other questions, I should scroll down here and see if there are any other questions. Nope. Good segment, guys. If you have any other questions, I'll hang on here for just a minute to see if anybody has one last question before we close out. Thank you for joining me tonight. And like I said, if you like this episode, if you like this content, encourage you to share. We don't have a ton of followers. I think we got close, I don't know, something like 1,000. How many do we got now? 1,000 followers, 900 followers, something like that. And, you know, I don't want to beg you to share and beg you to get followers, but please share it. We'd love to see if we can get some followers up to, 2,000, 3,000 mark and at least make me feel like a legitimate podcaster. I want to be a legitimate. Our podcast is actually ranking pretty good on the Google search results. They send me results every few weeks, and it's nice to know that as far as commercial roofing, we're ranking right up there in the top 1 or 2 pretty consistently. So that's good. You messing with my screen there, Rev? I just see that blip. I want to do a shout out to Rev here too. His real name's Everardo, but I call him Rev because it's a little bit easier for me to say all the time. But little story about Rev real quick is I was looking for a marketing guy last summer, and I was really looking for a guy that was maybe kind of fresh out of high school, and it was looking for a gig that didn't, not a marketing agency, but somebody that wanted to come on board and work with us for 10, 15 hours a week doing some videos. And I just put that on my personal Facebook page, and a couple people recommended Everardo, and he came in and did, I think, 2 interviews with us. And he was a young, ambitious kid, and kind of doing things on his own. He marches to the beat of his own drum, and he had 2 clients, and he wanted to have more clients, and so he started walking roofs with me. And so I think that's very important when you're working with a marketer. But like, he's not really a marketer, he's more of a videographer and editor. But it was very important that he wasn't just hitting the record button and walking, right? So I had to teach him, like, when we're on the roof, this is kind of what we're looking for. And I'd show him details, and I'd talk to him about safety and when we're doing video and what to look at for when you're looking at the roofers and what details to look for. And I'm actually going to let you in a little secret. Rev works on roofing projects from time to time. He actually works with the crew. Not all the time, but like a day here and a day there. In fact, I think you're going to work with the crew tomorrow, aren't you?
Yeah.
He's going to go work with the crew for a day. What marketer do you know that does that? What videographer or photographer or video editor do you know that does that? That goes and spends a day with the crew so he can understand the laborer side, the installation side of it. I think that's going to be tremendous value to him for when he's doing... I'm sorry, because I keep looking at my screen down here instead of looking up there. But I think that's a tremendous value of him for when he's going to be putting videos together, that he understands what these guys are doing, that he knows how TPO gets welded, he knows how cover tape gets installed, he knows how a coating system goes down. You probably know how all the steps are with the primer and the base coat and the fabric and everything, don't you? So that's great for him as for what he's doing, editing and doing content every day, for him to kind of have that understanding of what we're doing as roofers. So thank you for your help, and he's actually staying late tonight to help me do this show. So we'll be getting off here now, and I appreciate for showing up tonight. We'll be doing another one of these in the future where you can ask me anything. So hope you guys have a good night. Stay safe, stay productive, stay profitable, and by all means, I don't know. I never end these things right. Roof on.
You've been listening to the Rocket Roof Show podcast. Be sure to subscribe through your favorite podcasting platforms such as iTunes or Google Play to get the latest episodes as they are launched. For more, please follow us on social media or visit our website at rocketroofshow.com. We look forward to joining you here again soon at the next launch.